From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I am your host, Sean Fazende, riding shotgun as he does each and every podcast. Is Andre Johnson Jr. Do not forget the JR at the end of the name. It's very important to remember the Junior. Before we get into today's content, be sure to like, share, rate, and review. If you are watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, get the bell notification for when we drop that fire content. And once again, thank you for finding us on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network, where this podcast airs throughout the week. So thank you guys for finding us. Wish we had some better, more positive things to talk about on this podcast today. On this Monday, unfortunately, not a victory Monday, but the sixth straight week. Your New Orleans Saints are not good. They're not good. They are not good. But before we get into the bad, let's talk about the good, or at least let's hope it's good. How you doing this Monday?
I'm doing good. You know, I'm feeling good on Monday. Went to the pumpkin patch with the family over the weekend. You know, had a very calm, relaxing weekend until the Saints played and ruined it for a lot of people in the city.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that are in that same boat. The trip to the West Coast was not fun. The energy I saw in practice did not show up in the game. The health stuff sounded good. It just never really showed up in the game. And of course, now they're 2-6, and that's where we got to go with the big picture.
Absolutely. You know, the Saints 2-6 on a 6-game losing streak, the longest losing streak that they've had as an organization since 2005. Back in 2005, I was 10 years old. That's where this franchise is right now. And when we get to the big picture, typically I have a nicely formed question for you, but I'm going to put it simply, Sean. This team is bad, and the Saints are in trouble. What's going on?
Yeah, they're in trouble, to put it lightly. This is getting difficult, man. This is getting difficult on these Mondays. This is getting harder and harder to come in and try to put this into proper context and try to capture the right emotion or capture the right feeling for the state of the franchise, where what I view the franchise at, where what I think they view the franchise at, and obviously the fan base, we're kind of in the middle here, but I'll just do my best. I'm at my wit's end with this. I mean, I really am. I'm at my wit's end with this 2024 New Orleans Saints team. They're not just bad, they're boring. Sunday was an absolute snooze fest. Even if you're not a Saints fan, if you're just a casual football fan, you would have turned that game off pretty quickly.
And it was better than the game before it.
I mean, an absolute snooze fest to watch. They're not just bad, they're not competitive. Remember, they haven't just lost six straight games. They've lost 4 straight by double digits. This isn't a situation. Say that again. 4 straight by double digits.
4 straight by double digits.
This is not a situation where a few plays go their way and everything's better. Not even close. That in and of itself would be bad, but no, this is way, way, way worse. They're not fielding a competitive team right now. And this was the week they got healthy. What are we doing here? Where are they going? Where is the direction? What is happened with this 2024 New Orleans Saints? Which leads me to my next point. Dennis Allen said he's optimistic they'll have Derek Carr back this week. Thank the good Lord for that. We knew the Saints were not going to be strong or as strong without Derek Carr. And look, I'm probably more on the Carr side than a lot of people, at least from the impression that I get. But even I didn't think they would be this bad, this poor, this inept without him. Think about this. Not only did they lose the 3 games he was out, they lost by an average of 21 points. 3 games without Derek Carr, 21 points. Losing by, on average. That is pathetic. That is absolutely pathetic. He also exited 3 games last season, if you recall, in the middle of the game, and they lost all of those 3 games. So in 2 seasons where Carr didn't either start or finish a game, they're 0-6. Think about that. 6 chances, no wins. Kind of symmetrical now when you talk about a 6-game losing streak with the Saints are currently on. Again, Carr is not the perfect quarterback, not even close. And this is coming from somebody that's, like I said, probably a little higher on him than most. We know that. But they have absolutely fallen apart on offense without him. And at least With him, he gives you a chance to be in the game. I'm not talking about winning the game because that hasn't always been he's done much of. I guess more than others, but not nearly as much as perhaps he could have. What is going on with this team? Maybe most of y'all are at the point where you think that's a bad thing. Like, let's not be competitive at this point. Like, it's best to be terrible and lose. And right now, I kind of get that feeling. I understand that feeling. I really do. If you're a fan, you're the paying customer, you're the one investing your time to watch these games on Sunday, to go to the game, spend the money, parking, all that stuff. I really do understand where you're at, but I'm just telling you, the Saints are not at that point. They can't be, especially with Dennis Allen, because he knows he's on his last chance. The fact that that approach is even a legit talking point where you're basically pulling for this organization to lose is an indictment on everyone. Everyone inside that organization. Mickey Loomis at the top, who is the guy making all the decisions behind the scenes, letting his guys under him do their job, but he is ultimately the guy that runs the organization. Ultimately, the roster and coaching staff fall on him. Jeff Ireland, who has the final say on the draft before it goes up to Mickey. Just think of some of the busts right now. Peyton Turner, Isaiah Falsky, Sal DeVary. Kendre Miller is hurt again. Kai Harley doing the contracts. No, that was a great, that was wizardry. That was wizardry, and that was everything when they were winning. All this creative way to find the money, to make the money work and all this stuff. Dennis Allen, who clearly just can't figure his guys out, who clearly is just not pressing the right buttons with his team with any consistency. The medical staff. I mean, this is an insane amount of soft tissue injuries. Lattimore out again. Kendre Miller out again. Wash, rinse, repeat. And, of course, the players. Have some freaking pride. What is going on here? We talked to Foster Moreau in the locker room yesterday. He was fantastic. Just talking about, you got to love this, man. You got to love this. You can't think of this as just a job. You got to love this. You got to have a passion because jobs are jobs. This is football. It's a beautiful game. You can't lose hope. That sort of stuff. He was fantastic. I don't know if you saw it in our package last night, our story that we ran. The picture I'm trying to paint for you is this. The NFL is a league of parity. To fall this far from where you're not even competitive is an absolute disgrace. And I understand that you've had a lot of injuries. But that also falls back on the roster building with the lack of depth, which also falls back on all those people I just mentioned. At 2-6, there is just the only glimmer of hope you have is you got the Panthers next week and Derek Carr coming back. But what else do you have to even look forward to? I mean, I know most of the fans have checked out, but this is just an absolute stunning fall from grace to where they have now gone from talk of the town the first 2 weeks of the season to basically you're hoping to just remain competitive in the fourth quarter of an NFL football game. I'm at a loss, man. This franchise is just it's I don't know what has happened to this once proud organization, but they're on the brink of just total collapse right now.
Yeah, you just asked the question, what do you have to look forward to? In the last podcast episode on Friday, we talked about the 5-game stretch, now a 4-game stretch for the Saints that they had coming up. It was the Chargers game, Carolina, Atlanta, Cleveland, bye week, and then the Los Angeles Rams. I said in those 5 games, you have to go 4-1 if you even think that playoffs are still a conversation. They lost the 1.
Yeah.
Your win streak needs to start now. If your win streak does not start now, Saints fans will not be talking about the playoffs in January. They will not be talking about the Super Bowl in February, other than the fact that it's being played in this city. What they will be looking forward to, instead of January and March, January and February, will be March and April. Free agency, league calendar starts in March. The NFL draft starts in April. Because if this team continues along this path, there's been a lot of fans saying it. We've talked about it on this podcast. At some point, you can't keep doing the same thing. The definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And for this team, the results have been pretty consistent. At some point, this organization is going to have no choice but to blow it up. but to part ways with their head coach, but to
reshuffle the deck in the front office.
The front office, to look at the GM, Mickey Loomis, and say, maybe we get somebody else in that position. But because of everything that's happened in the last few years, this isn't a team that's a piece or two away. You look at the Steelers. You can look at a team like the Steelers and say, there may be a nice drafted quarterback away from being a great team for the next 10 years. This rebuild is going to take time because not only are you in the hole every year in the cap, in money, having to clear $100 million just to start your NFL calendar, you've got one of the oldest rosters, if not the oldest roster in the league.
With no salary cap space.
Exactly. If you just go position by position, looking years down the line, you're going to need a franchise quarterback. Alvin Kamara's about to turn 30. You're going to need a running back. Kendre Miller has not shown us anything to be that option. You look at wide receiver. A lot of people could question whether Chris Olave is a true wide receiver one. He's wide receiver one on this team, but would he be on other teams? No, he wouldn't be. You've got to look at having a deeper wide receiver room. Tight end, you definitely have to look at production from the tight end position. Offensive line, you've got at least 3 or 4 positions on the offensive line that you're going to have to address years forward. You look at the defense, the secondary, safety. Tyrann Mathieu, you're going to have to need somebody to play his position going forward. Has anybody really stood out on the other safety position? Jordan Howden, Will Harris when he was playing. Anybody enough to say, oh, yeah, that's the future of the strong safety position? I don't think so. You look at linebacker, Pete Werner, after rewatching the game from yesterday, Pete Werner had a good game in his first game back.
Yes, he did.
Pete Werner was good. DeMario is older. Yes. Willie Gay Jr., he's 25, 26. You're going to have to look at deepening the linebackers. Pass rusher. There's a reason you drafted Isaiah Foskey as a pass rusher in the second round last year.
Absolute bust.
He hasn't given you anything. You're going to need a better defensive line because that's part of the reason why you can't stop anybody running the ball. There's just so many areas of this team that are going to have to be rebuilt when they finally make the decision to blow it up. It's not going to be a quick rebuild, Sean. It's not 1 or 2 years and you'll be back in contention like in 2017. When this window was starting to close, you have a historic draft class, all of a sudden the championship window's right back open. It's not going to be a situation like that. This is going to be a long, potentially painful rebuild once you finally get to that point.
And you look at each person responsible for those important steps. I mean, this is a full-fledged just collapse. I mean, it's not just one thing. For just one thing, you can fix it. But you got an aging roster. You really don't have a whole lot of money to spend. And when you finally find the funds to spend, it's going to be the same sort of drill you've been doing. You haven't necessarily drafted well. The medical staff clearly has some kind of issue. I don't know what's going on with that because these guys, just keep popping up with these soft tissue injuries. I know injuries are happening everywhere in the NFL. But my goodness, every single time somebody goes on the field, they leave with a soft tissue injury. It was, apologize for the coughing spell here. But Lattimore and Kendre Miller. So, bad season, aging roster, not a whole lot of money to spend, a ton of holes. The draft is coming, but you haven't necessarily drafted outstanding, drafted well over the last couple of years. It's a tough spot to be with this organization. I'm going to step away from the mic so I can just coughing here out of the way. But
Gotcha.
Just a tough spot here for the Saints to be in. And if you're a fan, I can understand just the absolute disgust right now with the organization.
Right. And, when you look at the team moving forward, Carolina's on the schedule on Sunday. I'm not going to say Carolina's not a pushover because when you look at the Panthers and their record, the Panthers are a pushover. But when you're on a 6-game losing streak, that qualifies you to be a pushover as well.
Exactly.
The same way the Saints could look at the Panthers and say, finally, a team that's a pushover. I promise you the Panthers are looking at the Saints and saying, well, if we're going to get in the win column,
this might be our
that's
chance.
the team to do it against. And you can't necessarily sleep on the Panthers because where have we said the Saints have struggled on defense? Stopping the run.
Yeah.
Chuba Hubbard is 5th in the NFL in rushing right now. Ooh. And that's for a team, by the way, that spends almost every second of the game behind. So they have to pass a lot more than you would want to. Yet Chuba Hubbard, their running back, is still 5th in the league in rushing. And eventually Jonathan Brooks, the rookie from Texas, is going to get a chance to come in and play as well. It's unclear whether it'll be Andy Dalton or Bryce Young, playing because Andy Dalton got in a car accident. He was okay, but Bryce Young started on Sunday. But Dalton was solid against Vegas, Cincinnati, and Atlanta. If Bryce Young plays the same, I mean, everybody in the league can handle Bryce Young. He's one of the, you talk about bust. That's a bust, but you talk about rock bottom for this team, rock bottom for the Saints, as low as they have sunk, would be losing to the Carolina Panthers, who everybody can beat on Sunday.
Let me tell you something. If that were to happen, someone has to get fired. Like, someone would have to. It would have gotten to that point. We've been talking about how bad it need to get. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the line in the sand right there. If you're starting quarterbacks back and you somehow lose to Carolina or a 6-game losing streak and it gets to 7, someone of significance would have to lose their job after the game. There would just be no turning around, no turning back at that point. So, Saints are on the brink here, man. The brink of bad. And like I said, it's a franchise that right now just feels like they're in decline. That's just begging for some kind of positivity. And right now, the only thing they can hold on to is Derek Carr and a few winnable games coming up on their schedule. But like you said, guess what? The Saints are viewed as a winnable opponent on everyone's schedule right now. That's just the way things are. It's been a long time since I felt this down on the franchise because, even last year people were frustrated, but they were always in contention in the NFC South, and they were 4-4 at this point last year. This year just feels like, my goodness, what else can go wrong here? And when is it going to turn back around? And I know like a lot of y'all are into the mindset of, hey, just be terrible and restart it. But being terrible is one thing. If everybody's still in place making the decisions while you're terrible to bring things back up, then I'm not sure you're going to be in the spot you want to be in. So it's kind of this circular thing that the path that I guess they didn't think they'd ever have to walk down is getting closer and closer to becoming a reality. And they're not there yet, but here we are. It's not even Halloween, and we're talking about worst case scenario. It's just been a long time since we've been in this type of situation. But like they say, it is what it is.
Yeah, and you talked about the Saints quarterback coming back, Derek Carr, but to talk about Derek Carr, you got to talk about the guys who filled in for him. We got to give the Rattler review. If yesterday was Spencer Rattler's last start, he would have played 3 games. I guess you could say 2.5 games because he did get benched halfway through for Jake Haener. In those games, Spencer Rattler went 59 for 99. That is completing 59.6% of his passes for 571 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, a fumble, and a 35.5 QBR. That's quarterback rating, which rates quarterbacks from 0 to 100. Spencer Rattler at 35.5. So, was the backup quarterback experiment, would you call it a success for the Saints? What did they get out of these 3 weeks with Rattler and the little sliver of Jake Haener that we got?
The initial answer is no. That's an obvious one. And look, we all know the tough circumstances. We've talked about the tough circumstances Spencer Rattler faced. Didn't expect him to light things up. Didn't expect him to set the world on fire. I know some of y'all did. But that just never felt like a realistic thing for me. I did think he would make enough plays and the defense would be better or more than capable of keeping things afloat to remain competitive, but that hasn't even happened. But even with the adversity, and this is the harsh truth, I am less excited about Spencer Rattler as a player than I was when he began. I mean, outside of one good half of football, in the first half of the first game he played against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, what did he really do well? Where did he get better? I didn't see a single thing he really improved on or built on. In fact, he looked less confident, less decisive, and less productive as each game went on and on and on. Again, we know the big picture of the adversity he was facing with backup linemen and backup receivers, and he is the backup quarterback, so he got his opportunity because of less than ideal circumstances. But even factoring that in, I still leave underwhelmed and just not impressed. I think the first 2 games he faced of the relentless blitzing and exotic pressures from the Bucs and the Broncos truly had an effect on him and how he sees the field and feels the pressure. Sunday, he just wasn't seeing the field against the Chargers. He just wasn't. He wasn't smoothly going from read to read. His bootleg game has completely disappeared. I think they tried 1 or 2, and it had absolutely no chance. Just never looked comfortable, and that's why they had to pull him. And when it happened, there was a couple of us in the press box saying, at some point they're gonna have to make the call here, because not only was he not executing, but on 3rd and long, they're just giving up on drives.
Yeah.
They were just giving up on drives. So that now leaves open the debate about whether or not the team would have been better with Jake Haener during this 3-game stretch. Jake Haener, I think, in the short amount of time that he played, did seem a little bit more comfortable. He certainly didn't set the world on fire, and that's a reasonable debate we can have. I know you feel one way. I'm really kind of indifferent to it, but I can now that the whole thing is complete. Yeah, I'm probably a little more on your side when it comes to the Jake Haener situation. But look, Rattler's story is not over, nor is Haener's. Rattler has plenty of time to get better, learn, and grow. Remember, he is just a rookie. But as we sit here, right now, I don't see anything more than backup quarterback for Spencer Rattler. Certainly not someone you see as the future of the franchise at the position, which is where some of y'all were. That's not happening, at least not right now. Hopefully he gets better. Hopefully he grows at the position. But right now, I leave disappointed in the Spencer Rattler experiment.
You know, depending on your perspective, the question is, was the Rattler experiment a success? Depending on your perspective, you can say, yes, it was a success, because now the Saints know what they have, or in this case, what they don't have. There were a lot of fans who thought Rattler was QB1. There may have been some people in the organization who thought Spencer Rattler could be QB1, the future face of this franchise. And after the last 3 games, I think it's very clear he is not that. At least the Spencer Rattler that we see right now, I can't predict how he will grow in the future. But from the last 3 games, the Spencer Rattler that we can see right now is not QB1. He is not the face of the franchise. You are not building the future of this team around Spencer Rattler. It was actually asked to us in a question that we answered in a previous podcast. Do you see Spencer Rattler as the future of this team?
No.
I said, I don't think the future of this team is on the roster right now. I think he's sitting in a college classroom somewhere waiting to be drafted eventually. Spencer Rattler, by the way, I was looking at his blitz numbers. He was blitzed on 33 of his 119 dropbacks. That's about 28%. So Spencer Rattler blitzed on just over a fourth of his dropbacks. Mm-hmm. Then I said, I wonder where that compares to the rest of the league. Looked at the rest of the league. There's a quarterback in first place who was blitzed on 40% of his dropbacks this season. That quarterback, Derek Carr.
Wow.
Derek Carr was blitzed far more at a far higher clip than Spencer Rattler was. A lot of the quarterbacks on the lower end, by the way, were the better quarterbacks in the league because when they see a blitz, they know how to punish it. Mm-hmm. And that's what we talked about for Spencer Rattler. When the blitz is coming, he's not seeing it. He's not making the offensive line adjustments. He's not getting to his check down. The decisions that he's making, a lot of the bad throws, the turnovers, we sat and we broke down some of his interceptions. Mm-hmm. They weren't because he was blitzed. They were in clean pockets. Some of his bad throws are throws where he's scrambling out of the pocket. Mm-hmm. He has the opportunity to throw the ball away. Instead, he throws it deep into double coverage and puts the ball in danger. I mean, from what we saw this season, and you got to show him a little grace because he is a rookie.
Absolutely.
He was working with some injuries. But if there was any question in the Saints organization, can this kid Spencer Rattler lead us into the future? I think right now the answer is a resounding no.
And then look, it got really obvious yesterday that Clint Kubiak just didn't know what to call for him to get him in some kind of rhythm, some kind of comfort. Now that's an issue in and of itself because Clint Kubiak may be getting a bigger pass than perhaps he's earned because I do think he's got to learn how to adjust more. Excuse me, but you could just tell he has not found it with Spencer Rattler. So that's a major issue. And I don't know. I mean, look, you had these 2 young guys. You drafted them on day 3 in back-to-back drafts. 4th rounder with Haener, 5th rounder with Rattler, and I think both guys can develop into backup quarterbacks. That maybe someday when they'll become a true high-end backup. What is a high-end backup? Well, this situation, a 3-game stint, you help your team win a game or 2. Do whatever you have to do to help your team win a game or 2.
There was a high-end backup in Cleveland this past week.
I'm surprised they didn't get hit hard with that in the questions. Who gave one of the best post-game interviews I've ever seen. But I don't see it with Spencer Rattler, and I want to have an opportunity to at least have a full opinion on Jake Haener, but we just haven't gotten that opportunity other than a couple like what he had a quarter and a half in like the last drive of the Denver game. So, bottom line, I didn't think the Saints would miss Derek Carr this much, but my God, does number 4 need to come back? I know that kills some of y'all to say because I know y'all hate him, but this franchise, they're not turning anything around without Derek Carr, and I don't think they're going to turn a whole lot around because they're so far in the hole even with him, but at least you're not going to lose games by an average of 21 points. That's not supposed to happen in the NFL. This is a league of parity. And every game, the 2 games they won were blowouts, and most of the games they've lost were blowouts with the exception of the Falcons and the Eagles. It doesn't normally happen. It's just been a strange, weird, and frankly ugly season for the Saints.
Absolutely, and we've got about a minute left. I will ask you a question that has been asked a lot in our final word questions to us. Derek Carr coming back next week, presumably. He's supposed to return to practice this week. With all the problems we've talked about the Saints, is it fair to expect Derek Carr to be able to step in and fix it?
I want to see how healthy he is, how he can throw. I just think you'll have a veteran presence. He's not going to fix everything, but I think he'll steady some things. And I think there'll just be some things that he'll respond to the right way, and just being a veteran, he'll understand what to do in certain situations. But he's not going to be the magic cure. But I do think they will play better with Derek Carr. And then as bad as it feels right now, this is not a must-win. This is you better win or you're going to get fired type game coming up to the Panthers. So I actually think they're going to win in Carolina, despite how disgusted everyone feels about the game in LA right now.
Yeah, you know, we've seen a lot of people saying or asking, has this team given up on this coaching staff? We'll find out Sunday. Because like you said, if they lose in Carolina, a lot of coaches, a lot of people in that building may not show up to work again Monday and Tuesday. So if this is a team that still believes in their coach and hasn't given up on them, you're going to see a different kind of fight on Sunday.
We'll see. Hopefully so. They get their quarterback back, so hopefully they so. All right, I apologize for my coughing today. I'm very sorry about that. We're going to get out of here now. For Andre Johnson Jr., I am Sean Fazende. We'll catch you guys next time on Overtime.